Yeah, I don't know. Once again, this internet is trouble. Once again, I don't know whether it has to do with the cable box or the weather. I have to say both factors are affecting the cable itself. So having trouble getting on the net. But anyways, enough of that. Let's get on to some sports. And I have to say once again that Africa has been shut out of the World Cup, meaning that there are no teams playing in the World Cup right now in the knockout stages because Nigeria and Algeria lost last night. And I've always said this, and I'm saying it again. It's unfair. FIFA World Cup has been very biased and unfair because out of all the European countries and African countries, like Africa has more countries than Europe, okay? But most of the European teams have made the World Cup, whereas you take African nations, only 5 of them have made the World Cup. And I think I've discussed this in my other video on my other YouTube channel, and about FIFA World Cup being, or the FIFA organization being the white supremacist organization. And I said that the World Cup is full of racism and white supremacy because no African nation has won a World Cup nor has ever been put in any fair places in the World Cup. Like say, for instance, they put them in one group and put them in certain groups where they will always lose to other teams, like especially European and Latin American teams. I mean, that's kind of unfair in itself. I mean, it has to do with the coaching of the African teams, but most times it's the way the groups are placed and standings are placed. And most African teams have been placed in unfair standings and groups, so they don't get a fair chance. And only a certain amount of teams get to play. Number of teams get to play. I mean, what happened to Senegal, or even let alone Kenya, or let alone per se Morocco, or even Egypt? I mean, it's unfair right there. It's an unfair advantage right there. I mean, we have good soccer players, probably way better than European players and most Latin American players, but we don't get a fair standings or any fair chances. I mean, has to do with the money is a factor too. I mean, it's just surreal. But all 5 countries from Africa are gone, and I'm not a happy camper about that. I've always known there's some sort of white supremacy and racism within the FIFA organization, and a lot of politics mixed into it as well. This white supremacist ideology that only European countries should win, and maybe to some extent Latin American countries. Let alone let's just forget about like Asian and African countries. It's just sad. I mean, anybody should see that FIFA FIFA organization is a racist, white supremacist, white supremacist league, amateur league. Since you see the kind of treatment that most African players go through when they're playing soccer in Europe. They get a lot of racial threats and racial taunts from the fans. So, I mean, it's not surprising right there. And probably the people who are in the board of directors are sitting in the FIFA World Cup FIFA organization. They're probably all white European men, and to some extent women that's sitting in the board of directors. No black faces sit in there, nor even an African face sits in the board of directors. I mean, FIFA is not any, it's no different from, say, NHL or NBA or even the NFL football leagues or Major League Baseball leagues. You got these white owners that sit in there. They make all the plans and all the rules, and they control all the basically control the office, the politics that are involved. So it's not surprising to me that African countries get an unfair advantage. And I'm reading some stuff from the this black blog on a Tumblr, and they wrote some news about. He wrote something about that too on this blog. But let's just get on to yesterday's game that caused the 5 African countries to bow out of the World Cup. As you all know, Nigeria lost to France. France was the favorite in that game. It's obvious. 2-0. Nigeria didn't score any goals, and they probably got some questionable calls, penalties that probably weren't penalties at all. So they lost that game. And then another game, Algeria lost to Germany by a score of 2-1. So Germany's through and Algeria's out. I mean, nobody wants to see Africa thrive, even let alone in the World Cup. That's a bunch of BS to me, if you ask me. But it is what it is. That's it for sports.